Hello on this very blustery early April day, and welcome to a new video from the old shop. There's the alder carr, and this is the little stream that I call the otter stream on the other side of the lane from where I go down the bank sometimes. But I've been looking for some wild garlic. I'm sure there are lots of videos on YouTube of people finding and using wild garlic at the moment because this is the time of year for it. But that's what I've been doing as well. So I thought I would just show you, because the place I normally go by the lane, it all looks really dusty and kind of unappetising this year. I don't really know why, because I pick it from there normally. But I noticed on the other side of the stream, I don't know if you can just see that white down there, but that's the flowers of the wild garlic, and it seems further from the road, and I just think it might be quite a good place to go and have a look. I haven't been over there to have a look yet, but you can get across here where the bridge is. There's like a little path. Well, it's not really a path, it's very brambly, but I imagine that the deer and probably other animals go over there that way. So that's what I'm going to do now, and when I get there we'll have a look and see if it is any better, and whether it's going to be good to collect to make some pesto and some soup from. So I'm just making my way over the bridge. I thought I'd just stop and show you how lovely it is that all the new leaves are opening, like on this hazel here. Everything is just so fresh and yeah, full of promise. Come down the other side, and I haven't quite got to where the garlic is yet, but it does look better than the other side where the carr. Well, I always do go a little away from the carrs. I don't just pick it literally by the verge side, but it all looked a bit dusty for some reason this year, so perhaps I was just a little bit late coming along to find it. But as you can see, there is a veritable sea of the wild garlic just here, so I'm going to pick some and take it back with me to the old shop. I'm sure a lot of you do not need me to tell you about wild garlic because it's very commonly foraged. It's one of the few things I actually do make sure I do come and collect, because it's so plentiful down here, and it is really good to use in things like pesto. So I'm going to be making some soup and some pesto, and the recipe that I'm using says something like 50 to 80 grams, which doesn't sound very much, but I've no idea really how that translates to the leaves, because each leaf isn't going to be very heavy, is it? So I think I better fill my basket right to the top, and then see what that looks like. Well, you probably don't need me to tell you as well that the flowers are edible as well, and people often use them for things like garnishing salads. I don't know why, but I'm just a little bit squeamish about eating flowers. I know it's a very fashionable thing to do, and they're really pretty. There are lots of edible flowers actually that are used, but there's just something about it that doesn't appeal to me. So I'm just going to stick to picking the leaves. today, and I'm probably not going to try and preserve them in any way other than making pesto, which should keep for a few days. I don't suppose it will have to keep for a few days, because I think there's lots of ways of using it, particularly as a vegan. I'm going to be making a vegan pesto, and there are lots of recipes that it will enhance and give them a bit extra flavour, which is good, and then no doubt a bit of extra goodness, because wild garlic, like all the alliums, has got a lot of antibacterial, for example, properties, and is good if you've got colds, which I haven't at the moment, touch wood, but you know, it's good. It's a good thing for your immune system as well. So I shall be, while it's still good like this, and it's really nice, you can probably see how glossy these leaves look. Very, very good wild garlic. I don't know whether anyone's found it over this side, probably not, because we're a little bit away, hidden from the mainstream of life. It's going to be lovely when the bluebells come out as well. I can just literally see the first one or two, just a tiny little bit of blue around me, but very, very little. It's mostly just leaves at the moment, so everything that's really green still. So I think my basket's full. I think I've basically got enough. I don't want to pick more than I need, and that must be enough for the 2 recipes I have in mind. I can always come back for some more, which is always a nice thought, although I think it's one of those things where it all looks lovely now, and it won't take very long before suddenly it all goes over a bit and, you know, won't look quite so appetising. So I'll probably come back at least once more to get some more. But what I was going to say was, and I'm sure I said this last year probably, I came and picked wild garlic, but often among the wild garlic you get this other kind of leaf, and I just thought, I mean, again, I don't know if I'm just talking to it's something everyone's talking about at this time of year, but you see how this grows among the wild garlic, and it's a different shape. It's got like it's not as pointed, it has spots, and it has like almost like an arrowhead effect, like one of those stone flint arrowheads. This is Lords and Ladies cuckoo pint, and it often grows among the wild garlic, but as I say, it's poisonous, or at least it's not something you'd want to be eating. I don't know how much harm it would do you, but I don't think it would do a lot of good at all. So it's quite a good pointer, the fact it's nearly always, if not always, spotted, which helps. But the actual base colour of the leaf is really similar to the wild garlic, and it often quite cunningly grows right among, as you can see there, it's in the thick of it. So just a little word of warning, I suppose, against that if you go out foraging and are not familiar with it. So just on the way back, but I just thought I'd show you one of the very first bluebells to come out here, and it looks as if it's a nice delicate bluebell that's going to have a little bent over head and not be one of those great big Spanish bluebells which are taking, I don't know if they're still said to be taking over everywhere, because they hybridise with the English ones, and you know, you lose that delicacy of the wild bluebells. But I don't know how I feel about that. I sometimes just think, well, these things, they just happen. They happen as they happen. But it is nice to see the ones that have got that kind of lovely fairy quality about them. As you see how the lovely little bells are, they're just beautiful, aren't they? And of course it'd be a sight to behold, not just here, with bluebell woods everywhere, completely carpeted in blue before long, if in some places they're not already. Maybe they're further advanced in some places further south than here. Back on the bank of what I like to call the otter stream, always in the hope of seeing an otter here again, which I haven't done for a couple of years now. I don't think it was last year, I think it was the year before. But obviously, once you've seen an otter once somewhere, you always live in hope of catching another one. But anyway, so that's the little bridge I just walked over, which looks very pretty, doesn't it? But it is actually all quite utilitarian and farmery to take the water under the road. And I don't think that the stream actually just terminates where it's been dug out to form a drainage area away from the alder carr, which I'll just point back across. See how close they are, and that's the carr there, which we sometimes have a look at, go inside and have a look at. It's drying out quite a lot in there, so we might be able to have a bit of a walk around in there in one of the videos soon. And the birch leaves are coming out as well. The wind is getting up, as you can probably see and hear, so I won't linger now. I will get back. It's quite nice on this side of the stream. I don't ever come on over this side, apart from once or twice I think I came looking for fly agaric toadstools in one of the videos, which I found. I think I spotted one from the bridge and came over here, and there are lots of them. I'm just on the way back with the wild garlic, and I stopped off in Acorn Wood because I've got into slightly better habits of, in the last video I was talking about collecting kindling and using what's here rather than chopping up bits of bought wood, which is a really silly thing to do. So I've got into better habits of basically always bringing a basket with me when I go out just for a walk, and then bringing a little bit of kindling back every time. So that's what I'm just doing on the way back now. But while I was doing that, it also alerted me to the fact that bracken's coming back. So that's really lovely. I always think of that as a real sign of spring. It's not the earliest thing that happens in the spring, the bracken. It takes ages really before anything happens. It's all laid really low and almost dissolved, and then there seems to be a pause, and then you get the new bracken coming. And the shapes that the new fronds make is just so lovely. That's going to become more and more so over the next little while, and no doubt I'll be photographing it and videoing it till you're sick of unfurling bracken. But this is the first I've seen, so you saw it here first. It seems like a very long time since we've had a front garden tour, probably because it is a very long time since we've had a front garden tour. But I've been clearing, this is a little project which I find much less overwhelming than the back garden, which we will, I'm sure, come to at some point quite soon. But it's very self-contained, it's very tiny, probably tinier than it even looks in the video. And so it's, I really enjoy it basically. So, as well as that, it's all coming back to life for the spring, which is always a beautiful time of year to see what's happening. So let's go and have a look. I've cleared all round, just gradually, so you can actually see what's coming up and how the signs of spring have been progressing, quite a lot in fact. So we've got the two little hazel trees, and you can see they've got all their leaves now, and they're getting quite tall. This one's about as tall as the hedge. And the hedge is taller than it should be, probably. So yeah, that's actually really happy there in the corner. Just basically everything, all these herbaceous plants that die back in the winter have come back again. I've got this lovely little plant that wasn't here last spring, because when I cleared my mum's house, I think this is the only thing I brought, the only plant anyway, I brought from the garden. It's called Dicentra, Love Lies Bleeding, but it's a very nice one because, well, I think so. It's lovely, really pale pink. I don't know if it looks white in the video, but it's actually kind of blushed with pink, which yeah, I really like. I'm very attracted to pink flowers, the right kinds of pink, subtle pinks. So at the moment there's not very much actually flowering, but you can just see the potential of what's going to happen. And the willows have got their leaves. Last year I had them tied over at the top. This year they're not tied over at the top, they're just each side of the well, I say the path, the way through the garden. But I like them like that, so we'll just see what happens as things progress, and whether they get too unwieldy like that and I might have to tie them together or cut them back or something. Not sure yet. The bird bath is getting really well used. I keep looking out of the window and seeing the sparrows and robin having a bath in there. All over the garden, front and back, there are lots of columbines, aquiledias, which I've recently discovered is also called Our Lady Slippers, which I quite like. And there are lots of hardy geraniums, but again, as things move on, we'll see them coming into flower. And this little plant down here, one of my favourites, a coppery colour when it comes out, and that's already in bud, so that's quite an early flower. I think it's called a geum. I can't remember the actual variety now, like a lot of things. And the hellebores are still out, because you get the hellebores kind of through the winter and the earliest parts of the spring, but I like them when they get to this point, so they're gone kind of green and lost a lot of their colour. Again, I love this sort of subtle pinky greeny look of plants, so I'll always be a bit of a sucker for plants like that. I think this one was actually in the garden all the time. When I arrived here, one of the only plants in the whole garden that was, but it's still here, even though the garden was completely trashed by the builders, literally trashed, with broken glass and rotten wood everywhere. The hellebore survived. So that's a really nice survival, and I love them as well. So I'm very happy about that. There are tulips. This is a nice, you can see a lovely pointy tulip there going to come out. I've put tulips here and there all over the garden, and I think they like sunshine, and this isn't, well, this side of the garden isn't especially sunny. I know the sun's out at the moment, but it's quite sheltered by the hedge, so I'm not sure how happy it will be, but it looks all right. And these Japanese anemones, it might look as if this thing holding it back is a little bit premature, but it won't be too long before it actually grows and is needed to restrain the plant. So I left it in ready. That's the other hazel, and here's the little pond. So actually I think I could do with a bit of water in, really, but I'll do that. I have cleared out lots of dead leaves, so it's looking quite nice, and this is all water mint, so that will smell, it does smell nice. Yep, it does. And this is an iris here. So I'm really happy how things have come back, because I must admit it was not looking exactly thriving not long ago, and it's yeah, nature has done nature's thing, and it's all coming back all by itself. There's some quite gusty winds today, but it's quite bright and quite warm, really, so I thought it was a nice day to show you. This is the wayfaring tree, as it's called, which I like the name, and it's already in flower. I think it's actually a viburnum, and the rose, I say I've done all the work in the garden, but it's all very, very, very rough and wild, this stuff all going over the top of the trellis, so I might have to try and do something about that somehow. Not quite sure how, but I might do. And the crabapple tree, yeah, it's actually quite wild and windy, as you can see, and the crabapple tree has actually reached right up to the gutter. I had no idea it had got as tall as that. It's very spindly. I think somebody said as a comment in the previous video, it's probably not a very good place for it, and it's trying to grow tall. You know, it's growing tall rather than anything else, so I'll leave it as it is for now, and we'll just see what happens. As I always say about lots of things, but why not? We'll just see what happens. There's more of the lovely columbines down here. See how everything's coming back? It's so lovely to see. Well, it's all looking so fresh. And I've got a tulip actually out here. I'm not sure what that's called. It might be called Copper Image, and it is coppery, so it might be. And I've cut lots of things back, so there are like decorative grasses here that should come back. And alchemilla here, one of my favourites, will have yellowy greeny flowers. Well, lots of things to come, but we might as well see it as it is now, and we'll see it in its first flush of beautiful fresh green. That's a dogwood. And it might be a long time since we've been to look at the front garden, but some things don't change. We've got the sprite's child is still sitting here, probably just looking a bit greener than last time you saw him, and the frog. The frog, I think, looks probably the same as before, and you can still see these lovely traces. I say lovely, probably not at all lovely colour, but the traces of green paint that my grandmother painted the frog. I can't believe that they're still there after decade upon decade. Just those last little bits where she used to paint the frog every year, or I don't know, quite frequently anyway. So she would never have let the frog get covered in moss like this. It would have been kept kind of, yeah, brightly painted in her garden. The clematis here looking quite rampant, climbing up, and the roses, which are going to be, well, in a couple of months. Yes, a couple of months. They will, if not a month or so, they'll start coming out, I should think. And one of the best things in this garden, I think, are the roses. So I'm really looking forward to those. I've noticed there are already some buds. Let's see if I can find some to show you. There's a bud. Can you see it there? And this rose is probably my very favourite in the garden, Desdemona. Which is like a whitey colour, really, really, really scented rose, just as you come into the garden. And there's another one behind there. Don't know if you, again, I'm probably making a bit of a mess of this, but the one at the back there is called Boscobel, and that's a pinky colour. That's another David Austin rose, and it's really well scented as well. And I've got this decorative currant here, so that looks as if it's just coming into flower, this ribes. And then there's a clematis, which is a montana. Oh, I'm getting caught up with my jumper. Wait a sec. You see how this is just almost going to open? This is a clematis montana, which is climbing up, well, sort of climbing up the porch. I'm not really helping it very much. So like most things here, it's kind of taking its chance, and wherever it's climbing or finding something to climb up, that's what it's doing. In fact, the ivy there is climbing up to the bedroom window and has reached the sill. So that was a bit of a lightning tour, but I think it's quite good to keep coming back now and again and seeing as different flowers come out. And although it's really blustery today, it's a really nice day to come and have a look. There's some real warmth in the sun. You can see how enclosed it is in this garden, which in some ways is really nice, because it's nice to come in. If you sit low down by the door over there, then you get lots of, it's quite nice and sheltered, and you can sit even when the weather's not so nice. Although there's no shelter over your head, but it's just sheltered from the wind in certain directions, and the hedge shelters it as well. But of course it also means that not all the plants like it, because it does tend to get shady quite early in the day. But isn't it lovely to have the beautiful fresh greens, and just to have that lovely promise for the summer to come? And here's the finished pesto I've just made in a food processor. So I didn't really end up measuring anything actually, but it's come out very, very green. So what I put into it was a good big handful of the wild garlic, and I put in some olive oil, some lemon juice, some toasted, a sort of good handful of toasted walnuts. You could use any nuts, but I'm a bit late. I just thought walnuts, you wouldn't have to take the skins off or anything, so that was really easy. And salt and pepper, and a couple of tablespoons of nutritional yeast flakes, which are kind of cheesy tasting, and if you're vegan, they're a really good substitute for Parmesan cheese, which pesto usually has in. And that's it. So I just blitzed it all up together. We'll see what it tastes like. It's probably better to put it into things. I think it'll be full of the little taste I had. It was very garlicky, and it's always just nice to feel you have made the most of the spring abundance, and something probably I imagine that our ancestors would have made use of as well.